Welcome. I'm Rachel,
And I'm Amanda.
and this is episode 24 of Books and Bingos. This week, we'll be talking about books with Hispanic representation in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month. So, how do you celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month in your school? I'm sure it's a lot bigger in Texas than it probably is in Ohio.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, we have a big culture, a lot of students that are Latinx in our school. In fact, I think it's like 52% of our population. So yeah, like a lot of kids, and I want to make sure that like they all feel seen and respected and that we celebrate all of their cultures. And so I love Hispanic Heritage Month. I love doing displays and book recommendations for that month. And then also, like in our town, we have a Dia de los Muertos festival, and it obviously like goes into like October. But I love that we have so many different things. And then like at Cinco de Mayo, we have a big, like festival in honor of that, like at different places around town. So I just love like because of how like rich our culture is with Latinx families that we have all these different ways to celebrate them and honor them. What about at your school? What does it look like in Ohio?
It is very my particular school. We're very rural Midwest, so it is not very diverse. But we do have a lot of different cultures represented, at least by a couple of students here and there. So it's always fun to have these books so that not only can those kids see themselves, but our kids, since they do have such a kind of like a heterogeneous viewpoint, that they get to kind of explore some other cultures from books, even if they're not getting to in their day-to-day life as
Absolutely.
much. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what I love about it too, is that I want some of my other students of different races to be able to check out so many different Hispanic titles and Latinx titles to see what some of their like neighbors or their partners in school, like, for projects and stuff, what and their friends, like what their life is like and what their culture is like. So yes, I love them being able to have that opportunity.
And I'm big on like cultural celebrations. Like I love like any chance you can to like celebrate just a day here and there is
Yeah.
fun. So I mean, I think that's always really fun, and it gets the kids excited about learning about different cultures. Like you said, like Day of the Dead, they don't understand what it is, so we'll have like a little puzzle or something and do something,
Yeah.
kind of in our little low key way at school to represent that, like coloring sugar skulls or just
Yeah.
something to kind of open that conversation up. And then again, it's not even just like the Hispanic, just from all the cultures. And I think it
Right.
makes it even more cool when you have just constantly you're celebrating a different culture because it kind of normalizes it. Like it's
Absolutely.
just like this is what we do. We celebrate all the time that we can.
Exactly. And then one day we won't need to have Heritage Months because we're always celebrating everyone all the time. And that's,
Yeah.
I think, probably, the goal of what we want. Not that we don't want to not celebrate, but that's the thing is we should be always talking about different religions, different ethnicities, different cultures, and have them available for students to read. So 100% think it's a constant thing that we should be doing.
And I understand when people say like it should be every month, and I totally agree with that. But I think it is nice to have a month so that it's like on the calendar to make sure it's included, especially if that's not like the normative of the area.
Right.
Um, and especially because you can do like a deep dive. Like I always see you post your TBRs for those months, and it's just
Hmm.
like so intense. It's not that you don't do it the rest of the year. It's just
Right. I'm
one little
focused.
time of the year that is just solely focused on this category. And I think that's really nice.
Yeah, I love that too. I like being intentional with it. Like, and I have like my reading tracker that like I'm checking to see what representation is in the books that I'm reading, which no one should do because it's a huge time suck, but it makes me more aware. And I'm like, oh wow, it's been a long time since I've read a book with African American representation or a sapphic book. And so I try to then be intentional about what I choose. So
And
that's
it seems to me, and I tell people this all the time, this is the reason why representation is so important because if I don't do it intentionally, I don't seek those out because I'm looking for people who are represented by something with me. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Something they have
Right.
in common with me, like characters who are teachers, characters
Right.
who are women, characters who do this. So if I'm seeking out things that look like me, everybody needs to be able to find that because that's probably their inclination as well.
Absolutely.
So, since Hispanic Heritage Month, and in case you don't know, it runs from mid-September to mid-October. What should we be reading, Amanda? What's your first pick to celebrate?
So I chose The Great Cool Ranch Dorito in the Sky by Josh Galarza. And he is a debut author for this particular, like for this young adult realistic fiction book about a teen boy who is struggling with a lot of things, but grief is the biggest one, as well as depression, alcohol abuse, and an eating and several eating disorders. So this follows Brett, who is like feeling very out of control with his life ever since his adoptive mother got cancer. And now he like lives his life in a fantasy world with comic book storylines, and he likes to just check out any way he can. And it's great when it's a comic book. When it's not great when he starts using alcohol and food to cope with all of these feelings. The only person he really talks to about any of it is his school counselor, and she's always trying to get him to see a therapist, talk to his family. His best friend is also his foster brother, and he tries to help him. But Brett is really in denial about these issues that he has. But when someone leaks his food journal online, and like he had been trying to work with his school counselor on this to like write down why he's eating, why he's binging, and his feelings about it. Oh my gosh, he becomes this total, like everyone now knows who he is and knows that he's struggling with his weight, and about his insecurities, his grief, his feelings of isolation, and his struggle with food. So then he starts to go even further into the eating disorder with some binging and purging. And he also struggles with his like ethnicity because he is half Hispanic. And so like he talks about what that looks like not feeling like he totally fits in an all white world or an all Hispanic world. So I felt like there is so many things going on in this book that Brett goes through, and I feel like this was a really tough read. Okay. So please, I'll talk about the content warnings in a second, but please make sure that you check those first, because this author does not shy away from exploring all the facets of the teen boy experience, from drinking and bullying and lust and other lesser talked about issues such as body image and insecurities about dating, being mixed race, fighting against the patriarchy from the point of view of a teenage boy. And like, there's just so many great conversations that could happen to this. I think it would be amazing to do as a high school book club, because it could be a safe place for these kids to talk about these big issues. And I love that it's from a boy's point of view. I mean, he really gets into his feelings, which I feel like we don't advocate enough with our teenage boys to be able to talk about. And for also with a body image book, that's also not something that we talk about a whole lot. So the trigger warnings for this, the content warnings are going to be fat phobia, eating disorder, emesis, like a lot of vomit, y'all, like a lot. Suicide ideation, self-harm, death of a parent, cancer, body shaming, bullying, blood, toxic relationship, and alcohol. The bingo squares it would work for is 2024 release, Hispanic representation, LGBTQIA plus representation in one of the main side characters.
Sounds good. I feel like I've seen this cover. It's really pretty, but it's got a lot of blues on it,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And
it is
that's always a
very
warning
pretty.
sign. If you're out there and you see blue covers, that means you're probably going to cry. 9 times out of 10, that holds true. Everybody laughs when I tell them that, but it's true.
I think about it, and now like Wonder, that has a blue cover. I cried my eyes out when I read Wonder.
What was the one with the teenagers with cancer?
Oh God,
All
yes.
the Fault in Our
Fault
Stars.
in Our Stars is
Blue
blue.
cover.
Ooh. So is the one where they have the it was 5 feet apart. That one's blue
Yeah.
cover too.
Yeah.
So
My
interesting.
rules are don't read anything with the blue cover or an animal on the cover.
Yeah.
If it's especially if it's like not in the mystery section. Like a lot of cozy mysteries have animals on the cover and that's fine. But
Yeah.
if it's like a realistic fiction, no. No, ma'am.
Yeah, this one is not for Rachel, y'all.
No. My next one is not going to be very sad, but it is very scary, and that is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This is an adult horror historical fiction. It's got very gothic horror, Rebecca vibes. I had another comparison for it from a TV show, but I feel like that would be spoilers, so I'm not going to say it. But my review literally said, "Girl visits cousin to find creepy house full of creepy people." And that's basically what's happening. It is very creepy. This girl's cousin gets married to this man, and he's rich, and they like live out in the country, and she gets a really weird letter from her cousin, like help. And so they're not really sure what's happening. It seems like they feel like she's just exaggerating, but they send our main character out to investigate, and things are weird. The premise is creepy. The house is creepy. The atmosphere is super creepy. And it's all just very interesting and kind of an unexpected turn of events. I like how it was a slow build. We read this for a book club, and some people had a little bit more of a hard time because it is a slow build. It seems just a little slow at the beginning, slower than most people like, but it all builds in with the horror of it. It gets scarier as you go along, and I think that is some part of it. Like you're at this house and things are don't really seem to be happening, but you're still totally creeped out. So I highly recommend it. I love this one. Trigger warnings for body horror, sexual assault, incest, racism, death, murder, violence, gore, gaslighting, confinement, death of children, abuse, and quite a few more. So if you have sensitivities, I would definitely check the content warnings first. But yes, it's very like classic gothic horror vibes.
I am going to be honest. I started this one and I just could not get into it. But the fact that you say that it is a slow, I'm going to try it again. And honestly, like this is one that I probably would only read in the fall. That's generally when I read like gothic, horror, like real scary fall vibe books. So I will definitely be picking this one up in the fall and giving it another try.
I
So,
would recommend the audiobook too.
okay. Yeah, I think I have the audio. So that's
Oh, and I
great.
don't think I listed the squares, did I? Our
I
squares,
was gonna ask, what would our squares
let me pull that
consist
up.
of?
Our squares would definitely be Hispanic representation for sure. I would say I don't remember if this has leaves on the cover or not, but this has the most beautiful cover.
Oh, it's
Oh my
so
goodness, the
stunning.
rich like green and that like purpley red color.
Yes.
It's amazing. But yeah, I would definitely use this for your Hispanic rep square for sure.
Is it one that's set in a hot climate or no?
I think it was kind of hot because I think we're in Mexico.
Right. So
So
that's a potential
it
one.
probably would work for hot.
Yeah.
I don't remember feeling hot because I was like feeling creeped out. Do you know what I mean? So it's hard to
Yes.
it's hard to feel both at the same time.
True. Okay, so my second one is another young adult book, and it is the Luis Ortega Survival Club by Sonora Reyes. If you have read the Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School, this is the same author. This is, I think, her second book, and it is realistic fiction that deals with sexual assault and finding your voice. So Ariana Cruz liked getting attention from Luis Ortega, especially since she's someone that rarely gets noticed. She is autistic and she is selectively mute. So when Luis starts paying her all this attention and giving her compliments, it makes her feel, liked. Like she starts to get a crush on him when she never really had that before. And so because he started giving her this attention, he feels like he's entitled to more, especially since she doesn't really talk that much. So he definitely takes advantage of her. And that's how the story begins with Ari leaving a party traumatized, right? Um, when someone leaves a note in her locker, though, a few days later, she feels like maybe she's not alone because it is an invitation to join the Luis Ortega Survival Club because this is a group of teenage girls that have had a similar experience with Luis. And it's in their trauma helps bond them together, but at the same time, they start talking about revenge and ways to make him pay and hopefully have him get caught. But like his dad is involved in the law, and so he feels like he will never get caught, never get punished for what he's done. But through that club, she's able to find friendship, something she's never really had before. Being selectively mute, I feel like has, she struggles with that in the social skills and things like that. But that bond between these girls of what they went through really helps Audie feel like she can open up. And she finds other people she can trust and someone that she falls in love with. So this is a must-have novel for any high school library. I actually got it through Junior Library Guild this year, and after reading the back, I was like, probably not for middle school, and ended up sending it up to my high school. But it so addresses sexual assault, and it's done in a different way because it's not done in the most way that people associate with the act, right? So because Audie is autistic and not able to like pick up on social cues and stuff, she doesn't even know that she was raped until like the conversation starts to come up about what that looks like and that it wasn't just like, this attack and violent, like, but because she didn't feel like she could say no or like physically wasn't able to say no, she didn't really know that that's another way that, women can be assaulted sexually, right? So I love how Reyes talks about what consent is and how vital it is in relationships. And unless you say yes, like, it's still assault. The author gives us lots of resources at the end, and I just adored that Audie was autistic because it just brought so much representation in this story, and in like a whole other level and point of view of what that looks like. So the content warnings are obviously going to be sexual assault, slut shaming, unwanted touch, sexual harassment, anxiety, panic attacks, incarceration, bullying, cyberbullying, infidelity, and victim blaming. The bingo squares would be Hispanic rep, LGBTQIA plus, romance, and she is a New York Times best-selling author.
Wow, that one sounds difficult, but like you said, very important and an interesting take on the topic.
Yeah, like definitely can open up just like my other one, the Great Cool Ranch Dorito in the Sky. It's like a conversation starter. I feel like for our teens that don't feel like they can ask maybe these questions like to other people. So for to have a book like this, be able to start a conversation around what that looks like, and maybe some realize, hey, I didn't know that it could look like this. Maybe that's something that happened to me, and also just all the resources. Like I love how authors now are sharing all of the different ways that kids can reach out to other people and find ways to support them through trauma like this.
Yeah. And it would be wonderful if we did not need books like this, but
Absolutely.
because we do have students who experience this exact same thing is exactly why we need to have them available in the library. This is an important
Absolutely.
topic. So I like that you picked this one. Well, my next one is a lot less heavy, but still a little heavy in its own way, and fairly kind of a sad pick for me, surprisingly. And that is Miss Quinces by Kat Fiardo. This is a middle grade graphic novel with English and Spanish language. Our main character is not excited about spending the summer in Honduras with the family, while all of her friends are planning to head to this summer camp that she really wants to go to. And it gets much, much worse when her mom insists on throwing her a quinceanera that she never wanted. Through loss and touching moments with the family and a little bit of a different perspective for our main character, she shows a lot of growth and confidence and personality and becomes a really fantastic role model for a lot of our young readers. I really enjoyed the inclusion of the Spanish language and the cultural traditions around the quinceanera. I feel like I learned quite a few things, and it was a really just sweet story I think this is one that I will be recommending just very consistently throughout the year this year. Content warning for death of a loved one that happens in the book, which is not something I typically read. And then the grief around that, anxiety, and a panic attack that happens on page, and then some self-image struggles. For the squares, set in summer, Hispanic representation, uh, a comic book or graphic novel, and a hot climate setting.
I am so excited that you picked this. So, Miss Quinces is actually one that I read and nominated, and it made our top 10 for the best graphic novels for the state of Texas. So, it's definitely one that's like near and dear to my heart. Quinceañeras are such a big deal in Texas, and it's such like a moment of a rite of passage for our female girls that are 15. And I just love going to them and experiencing those and having my students share pictures of because it's like they wear these big ball gowns, but like our main character in this book, it doesn't really want to wear one. So I think it was a great way to introduce that not all, 15-year-old girls want to have like this big like wedding basically type event celebrating them with like a ball gown and look like a pretty princess. So I love that that was brought up.
And I like that they explore the concept of why they have them, some of the things that happen during a quinceanera. I kind of just thought it was like a big party, like a birthday party, just on a huge scale. So it was interesting to read more about some of the traditions and like why this is important to their families. So I thought that was fantastic, and I love that this was done with like humor and kind of a light heart. It was a very lighthearted graphic novel dealing with some really interesting topics. So I think this was just very well done. So I'm, like you said, I'm really glad I got this one read.
Yeah. So if you have a Scholastic Book Fair this year, grab it. They usually always have it in the elementary and middle school ones. So
Absolutely.
huge fan.
And those are our recommendations for the week. If you have questions, suggestions, or comments, reach out on social media at Books and Bingos or email us at booksandbingos@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and join us again next week when we'll be chatting comics and graphic novels. Happy reading!